Hello guys, we're the Legal Mauritian and we're back with another video. And we're continuing with our series on separation of powers. So, have you ever wondered what is actually a government, or how it is formed, or even what a government is supposed to do? Of course not, because you're too busy watching TikTok, and we don't blame you. But since you're here, you might as well watch this semi-informative, semi-entertaining video on the Mauritian government, where we'll try to explain just that. So, a long time ago there existed an old Greek dude named Plato, and he was kind of the guy who thinks too much. I guess you could call him a philosopher or whatever, and he devised that there were essentially 5 types of government. Aristocracy, whereby power is reserved for a selected few, and although Plato defined aristocracy as power vested in a selected few, which were usually the best suited candidates for the job, modern aristocracy is more used coterminously with another term we usually hear thrown around, that is, monarchy. We won't dwell on why this is so, as you'll end up boring yourself too quickly. But the main difference between aristocracy and monarchy is the presence of royal families. In aristocracy, it is usually those with higher wealth and land ownership that form the government. In monarchies, only members of a royal family, usually after a coronation in which a person is officially declared king or queen, can dictate the rule of the land. Timocracy is where the person who owns the most land in a country gets governmental power. Oligarchy is basically where the richest gets to control the government. And tyranny, or as you may know it as dictatorship, is whereby one person gets to control the whole nation. Now that all this useless stuff is out of the way, we focus on the main event, that is democracy. In brief, this is where the power rests within each and every native of a country. This power is usually presented in terms of the right to vote for certain people, which represent their interests and form the government. This is also called representative democracy as opposed to pure democracy, whereby the people are represented by certain individuals who in turn represent them in the parliament. And if you want to know more about how all this elections thing is carried out, just watch our previous video or click the link in the description below. In Mauritius, ever since we got our independence in 1968, we've had a total of 12 elections. And for the time being, there are 4 major political parties: red for Parti Travailliste, orange for MSM, purple for MMM, and blue for PMSD. And for the most part, the elections have been won by either one or a group of them in the form of a coalition. The winning party after an elections is usually the one who's won in most constituencies. A constituency is basically a selected area of a country whereby the people residing within that area gets to elect through voting a person or persons representing that constituency. The boundaries of the constituencies in Mauritius are regulated by the Electoral Boundaries Commission under Article 38 of our Constitution. Article 39 further helps in explaining the logic behind why our 21 constituencies are divided as such, and it all boils down to population density. Essentially, for fairer elections, each constituency should have about the same number of people. This is why densely populated regions are amongst the smallest constituencies. The Electoral Boundaries Commission is entitled to recommend alterations to be made to the constituencies if the population density in certain parts of the country changes. If the parliament approves of those recommendations, the constituency map will change. For now, we have 21 constituencies, whereby each constituency gets to elect 3 members to form the National Assembly. The 21st constituency, however, that is Rodrigues Island, only gets to elect 2 members. The Supreme Court then elects 8 additional members under the best loser system in order to assure that certain minorities are represented. In total, therefore, the National Assembly is composed of 62 elected members plus 8 appointed best losers, which brings the number to an even 70 members. The winning party then gets to elect their ministers. This is usually those people with the most vote in their respective constituencies, although this is not a strict law. These ministers, in addition to the Attorney General, which we'll explain shortly, form what we call the Cabinet of Ministers, and this is the main representation of our government. Each minister gets to oversee a specific area of the government. In total, there are currently 23 ministers, and just to give you an idea of the duties a minister has to do, we'll briefly explain the role of the Minister of Finance. A Minister of Finance and Economic Development has responsibility over all economic activities of the country. They will be the one determining all major price index for all commodities, for example grocery items, as well as deciding tax, the price of petrol and gas. This is usually done in the form of a yearly budget speech, which needs to be worked and presented by the Minister of Finance in front of the National Assembly. Another fact is that the Central Bank of Mauritius falls directly under the responsibility of the Minister of Finance, and the bank is accountable to the minister. In short, the Minister of Finance has the responsibility of introducing economic policies with the aim of improving a country's economy. This can be done, for example, by introducing new industrial sectors or decreasing tax to encourage foreign investment. But a government is not simply a group of ministers controlling everything. In Mauritius, we have certain governmental institutions set up to do certain specific tasks. These institutions are formed through a special form of legislations we call enabling acts. In short, enabling acts are the main legislations which create a governmental body. Each body has one enabling act which puts them into existence, and their executive powers are then given through these enabling acts as well as other supplementary acts. There are many such governmental institutions, and just to give you an idea, we'll briefly shed light on 3 such institutions. First, we have the Financial Services Commission, or the FSC. The enabling legislations of the FSC are the Securities Act 2005, the Insurance Act 2005, and the Private Pension Schemes Act 2012, and it derives its main executive powers from the Financial Services Act 2007. In brief, the FSC has the duty to regulate and supervise through licensing and monitoring any business activities in Mauritius other than banking. Second, we have the Independent Commission Against Corruption, or ICAC. Its enabling act is the Prevention of Corruption Act 2012, and its main function is to enforce anti-corruption laws as well as detect and investigate where they believe there has been any sign of corruption. And third, we have the Mauritius Revenue Authority, or MRA. Its enabling act is the Mauritius Revenue Authority Act 2004. The main duty of the MRA is to enforce tax and revenue laws as well as collect a variety of taxes such as direct tax in the form of corporate tax, personal income tax and TDS, indirect tax in the form of value-added tax, custom duties, excise duties and gambling taxes, amongst others. All in all, the MRA is responsible for collecting approximately 90% of all tax revenues as well as for enforcing all tax laws in Mauritius. Further down the line, we have semi-governmental organizations. The key example here is our national airlines, Air Mauritius. Semi-governmental essentially means that the government gets to control certain aspects of an organization, but not every aspect. Who, for example, Air Mauritius employs as pilots or stewards is entirely up to the inner workings of Air Mauritius, with little to no interference from the government. However, the permission to use Mauritian aircrafts, the purchase of new airplanes, or the commission of new hangars are usually controlled by the Ministry of Transport. Finally, we have the people of Mauritius. We usually hear that a person works in government or has a governmental job. These people also form part of our government because they are employed by the government. Let's take the example of a primary school teacher who works in a government school. That teacher, as we said, is employed by the government. That is, in this case, it is the Ministry of Education who is responsible for the employment, salary, and termination of employment of that teacher. Similar to this, under each ministry, people who work for organizations controlled by the government are essentially working for the government and in essence also form part of the government. Special mention here to the Attorney General, who is also part of the government and the Cabinet of Ministers. An Attorney General oversees the Attorney General's office, which consists of barristers and solicitors with the main duty to advise the government upon any and all legal issues in relation to all governmental decisions. They will also be the one to represent the government before the court whereby necessary. Something to note here before we leave you is that unless an Attorney General is elected through votes, as opposed to being appointed by the winning party, they will not have any right to vote in any parliamentary matters. So we hope that this not too long, albeit mildly entertaining/informative video helped you in better understanding how our government works. For our next video, we will explain the third aspect of separation of powers, that is, the judiciary. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It helps us massively. We are the Legal Mauritian.